You've been subjected to a highly sophisticated form of propaganda.
It's just what you need, and not what you don't.
Good morning.
And a bright good morning to you, my friends out there in TV land. Tony Caravan with you on a weird, colorful, oddly lit morning. And this will all make sense at some point in time, but not just yet. As you may have seen from the title card that brought you here, I have a picture of a rotary phone. I have the word Deevolution, and I've got this Western Electric ad for a video phone that was, I guess, I think, I don't know if it was Western Electric or AT&T or both that premiered that at like a 1969, 1960s World's Fair. And as I said in the description, basically a further examination of de-evolution, dehumanization, and dystopia. And as usual, I'm calling these flow of consciousness, but in reality, the idea is that isn't it always a flow of consciousness? Now, one of the reasons the light is strange here today is because I'm going to be demonstrating some technology of the day. But first of all, it's the morning show. You've got Tony Caravan live. I'm drinking a combination today of two kinds of coffees.
Good morning.
I've mixed a Starbucks medium roast with a Dunkin' Donuts rich chocolate mocha. I'm not sponsored by any of these, and like I've said before, I don't receive any monetization from any of this stuff, so that's just the way it goes. But however, I do hawk my morning show mugs and various other devices. And I'll tell you, this isn't bad. I mean, I'm not a milk drinker. I never was. I don't have like a problem drinking milk, whatever they call that. But nonetheless, I still don't. It's just not one of my favorite things. Like as these are a few of my favorite things. World. So, without further ado, I finally got the on my site Great Solar Stuff. Which is something I'm trying. I try to talk before we get into this de-evolution thing. I think I wanted to show like contemporary technology with, as opposed to the past. So what's giving me light today is this lantern. Okay. Now it's an electric lantern. You can see the cord there. All right. And I just have it close to me. So it gives some light to the face. The other light coming from this side is a light from my other computer. Now, this is this device that I've been talking about. All right. If we push this button in here, I think you may or may not be able to see. How about may not be able to see? I'm at 98% power. This thing's using 7 watts. And as you can see here, I'm plugged in to the device. In fact, if I pull this out, the light goes off. Okay? Plug it in, the light goes on. Here are 2 USB ports where you can plug a, your laptop or your cell phone in and charge them and use them at the same time. You also get with this thing, and this is the cheaper one. I paid this is like $199. This is a 240 volt. It's basically 200 watts. And it comes with, I just want to give you the product thing. And I know the lighting's not the greatest here, but I wanted to demonstrate that I'm in a power down situation. I could be running my laptop, this light, okay, and this audio equipment, which really uses nothing. So in this bag, you get one of these things, okay, which is a power adapter. So you could plug this into your house wall socket, okay? That's one thing. And it comes with this nice little bag. And also in that bag is this device, which kind of looks like an old cigarette lighter type of thing. And this is how you hook up. You can charge this through a car or through, these devices connect to a solar panel as well. So that all comes with the thing. So compared to this particular model, that we've demonstrated time and time again, which also will charge in an emergency case, will charge with those USB ports that are shining right there. Charge a cell phone, give you a flashlight, give you
This low was 5 degrees below the normal low.
Weather radio and all that stuff. I mean, this thing costs about $35. This thing costs about $200. Okay. But this thing, it has an, basically a lithium battery in it, and, will last you'll get years of use out of this. And I've had this light on, and it just says it's using like 7 watts for that bulb. I had it charged to 99%, and we're going to use it. And it has this version has one outlet on it, but there's no reason why you couldn't take one of these things. Okay, let me just disconnect this. Plug that into it, and then that still gives you, additional places to plug in, so you could plug in other devices as well. And we'll just leave it like that because it won't matter. And we'll use this, and we'll see how much power we use in the course of the broadcast. So that's kind of it.
Let's get this show on the road.
I want to get that out of the way, like early on, just to as we start the morning show. And we'll try this coffee this morning and see how that goes. So why the old video phones from the 1960s? And, you could glance back at that. This isn't the most flattering lighting when you just light like that. But then again, that's just my own personal vanity. It's hot in here today. And ay caramba. I need to check the weather here. So it's
Weekend weather.
Today's Saturday here on the mid-Atlantic of the former United States. Currently, it's 27 degrees. It's supposed to get up to about 55 today. The overnight's 30. Tomorrow, it's going to get up to 61 degrees overnight, 34 degrees above freezing, and Monday, 63 degrees, 36, and it looks like 60s and above, and actually in the 40s and 50s. So looks like tomorrow I may well put some, even though tomorrow night there's a possibility of frost, Sunday night, I may put in some plants and some seeds. There are certain plants, if you're into this whole thing, like I am, this gardening thing. What happens if I diminish this light over here? That's a little bit too. So, okay. Anyway, what I'm trying to demonstrate is that, and the reason it's dim, but still workable. I have a lighted keyboard that's operating on, I can't show you that, but you know, I'm operating on a set of a little Dollar Tree thing of Christmas lights that I have lighted on the top of my keyboard, which again are using like a handful of watts. And all of these devices, from laptops even to your modem that you get, are all energy saver type devices. So what I'm saying is, and as well as music, and if you have in tandem something like one of these things, so
At 6 miles an hour.
you could
The pressure was 30 point.
you could be getting news, in a disaster, or playing music or something if you want to, just AM, FM radio, whatever. Or like I say, you could even have additional light, which is pretty darn bright. And if you've got to go to the restroom or something like that, you just turn on this ridiculously bright flashlight. All right. And again, this thing is solar chargeable and even has a crank chargeable. And you say, what's the point of this besides me having this great solarstuff.com, or go to TonyCaravanLive.com and pick yourself up one of these things? Hey, we're in tornado season. And like I said yesterday, after that, we'll be in hurricane season. And then after that, it'll be winter again. And we'll be in storm season and ice storm season. And there's always something going on. And the idea here is that under this condition, what I'm trying to show you now is, whereas everybody else in the neighborhood, and of course you can light a few candles too, and things like that. But while everybody else in the neighborhood or the city's down for the count, you've got this ability, because chances are that it's not so much the internet that will be down, in a localized storm or something like that. Unless the tornado or hurricane actually hits the, either the cell towers or the, if you're getting your cable, if you're getting your cable from a cable company, and say that cable company got, building got hit. But, it's an odds game. And there's chances are, one or the other will have survived. So you could use your cell phone as a hotspot. You'll be able to operate everything off of, a portable device like this. And again, you can get, and I was going to get it, and I still may. I wanted to do this to demonstrate this. And so I ordered it in time to, for this show. But they have one that's about $500, which may seem like a lot, but I think that's like maybe 600 watts or something like that. And that's a lot. And you don't have to run these small lights. In other words, I'm using 7 watts. So the way to figure it out, just think common sense wise. If you've got a 60-watt bulb in a lamp, a lamp in your living room, right, or at your desk, well, that's only going to use 60 watts. This thing is like 200 watts continuous power. A lot of these computers, they're not using 100 watts, and these other boxes. So the point is, you can actually function and work while everyone else is down. Now, if you got one of those 500 watters, it's almost like you pay $1 a watt, something like that, 500 or 600 watts. I picked up for $7 at Walmart the other day. I should have. I have it right here. I was going to show it. I don't sell these things, but if you look at it, you see that $7. This is a ceramic heater. It's a small heater. The thing about it is, this is 250 watts. So in other words, if it were wintertime and you had one of those, the 500 watt version of this, which I'd recommend getting, like I said, this is a demonstration. I have a use for this out in my little mini greenhouse. So I wanted a lower one, but for my house, I'm going to get like the 500. They have 1,000 watt. I mean, on that thing, you could run practically anything. But if you had the 600-watt one, you in addition to running your computers, charging your cell phones, and having lights, or if it's the summertime, you could be running fans. Fans don't use a lot of watts. But in the wintertime, you could have like a small mini ceramic heater, beside you, and you could be keeping warm if you don't have, fireplace or something like that in your house. That's what I'm saying. So for, people got this $1,400. People are on unemployment, and I don't know what the numbers are. I was going to do the research on that this morning and I forgot. But to see how many people really are still unemployed. And they're getting a regular paycheck, but they have nothing to do. So your costs must be down. I know a lot of people, particularly in the big cities, with this, they have this thing where they're not paying their rent because they can't be evicted or whatever. And so what people are doing is they're planning to move, but they're basically staying there till they lift the eviction thing or something. Anyway, these are just a few little tips, common sense survival tips for people. And that's what I am. It's not prepping. It's not being tinfoil hat. This is talking about tornadoes. This is talking about hurricanes. This is talking about somebody down the street hits a power pole, right? A transformer blows, the power's out. Like I say, I've told this a long time ago. I've been in places where there's been weird things with transformers just a few years ago where the power was out overnight for 24 hours. Or storms like we saw in Texas or things like that, and which happened in the north a lot more frequently, obviously. And where you get down ice down, on power lines, down trees, and all that sort of thing. And so the idea is that it's not a matter of just to survive. It's like I say, survive and thrive, so that your quality of life might be slightly reduced. But for example, who needs the light if I'm watching a DVD with the family, if I had a family. But I mean, you get kids and they're restless, the power's out. What are you going to do? Well, these types of little boxes back there are just enough, it will provide the power and consistently and for several hours, so you could sit down and watch a movie with the kids and then have a light. And like I say, and then, you take one of these things, and everybody's got flashlights. It's just that the benefit of a device like this is that it's chargeable. So when the batteries run out on your flashlight, the batteries are never going to run out on this because you can crank charge it or solar charge it. And you can also use that extra energy in there in an emergency to charge your cell phone if it goes. So, for a matter of a few, $200 here, $35 there, some simple things like that. And sure, you should probably always have go to one of those dollar stores or whatever and get yourself a box of candles, cheap candles, like the taper candles or the votive candles. Don't go buying those. No, don't go buying those expensive candles. In the power out situation, you just need, if the house is dark, you'd be surprised what a little votive candle type of thing. And those things will probably last you a couple hours. And you could probably get 4 of those in a box for $1 instead of buying one candle for $1 or something like that, some scented candle, or a couple dollars if you don't go to a Dollar Tree. Anyway, that's that. That was a little long-winded. But what I really wanted to talk about today and at least, this, I'm calling this flow of consciousness part 3, is I wanted to get into this de-evolution of society, and how, like I say again, if you look at the title card of this show and you see that Western Electric video phone from the 60s, and of course I had the dial phone, thing, and I've also got, let's see if I can grab it. I brought this up on several occasions. This is, this is a dial. This is literally you can hear that. This is a dial phone from that era. And I have a couple of those that I bought on eBay, I don't know, 10 years ago or something, just because I thought they were cool. And when I was publishing a magazine about 5 or 6 years ago. And so I had this elaborate desk because I had two computers like set up because I was doing all these magazine layouts and all this kind of stuff. And so I had a desk. And so on my phone, I have a black version of that, which is even cooler. That's the original one from like early 60s. And that was my phone. So phone would ring and I'd pick up, and and I'll tell you, these things are ergonomically, let's do it again. Using all these props is ridiculous, but I mean, it's really comfortable, and they worked hard at developing these things. Not so much like today, that's why I say we've de-evolved in a sense. It's like, yes, there's been a lot of, I'm moving around like a crazy guy because every time I do that, I have to adjust the chair and everything. It's not so much that we haven't miniaturized things, okay? That we've done that. But, and there's apps and all that kind of garbage and stuff like that. But, how many times do you really, I find a lot of calls I get are not super clear. Like sometimes they are, sometimes they aren't, on cell phones. A friend of mine, and I thought it was just one thing. My mother used to call, my mother's in Florida, and she'd call and she'd say, "Oh, I have an echo," and she'd be calling from her cell phone. I have an echo, or sometimes the phone, or they just cut out. Does that happen to you? That happens to a lot of people. It happens to me all the time, but with multiple people from different areas using different types of phones. So it's not, you can't just say, "Oh, it's my phone." It's like I'll be on a cell phone and someone will call me and we'll be talking. If it's a longer conversation, sometimes it'll cut out, but it has nothing to do with the battery. The battery's fine. Or someone will call, or I'll be on my landline, so to speak. Basically I use this thing called Magic Jack. Again, I'm not sponsored by anybody except myself. The morning show mugs and great solar stuff. But this Magic Jack thing, I pay, again, it's one of those $39.95 or $99. Why can't they just tell you it's $40 a year? But anyway, it's $40 a year, more or less, and a year. And what you do is you just plug that jack. They call it the Magic Jack. You've probably seen you don't see the commercials anymore, but you probably remember them from like 5 years ago. It used to be on TV all the time, especially if you were watching cable TV at nighttime or something. Some weird guy on there, just like, hard selling, used car salesman type of guy. So when I decided to simplify my life, this all makes sense in the, in the long grand scheme of things. It was the idea, you write down all your expenses, and I've always done that. In fact, in my book, I think even in my latest book, not in my latest book, but the book just prior to that, 8, I actually have in there, let me grab it. This is this is my book before my last book that looks like infinity. Everything you know is wrong. But apart from all that, crazy stuff, this is mostly lyrics. This book was basically like the compendium of lyrics to all my beat poetry songs. But I also have things in there like how to build a raised bed garden. But one of the things, and I get down to specifics, where some people don't really, like I tell you how to do it. But, I have some articles in here, basic articles. But in the back, I have things like some anti-inflammatory foods, health foods. But I made these things like you see where it says the list and you could like cut it out, you make a copy of this stuff so you don't ruin the book. But what I've also done in here is I put in pages like here, you'll see a monthly budget. And I don't know how, if you focus on this or even freeze the screen, you can see up top where it says mortgage, rent, insurance, electric, gas, it goes further down the line, credit cards, all of your various expenses. And then I have things to do, things to get. And the idea here is, to help, just tools. They're common sense tools. That's me playing the piano when I was a kid, tiny kid. But the thing is, the reason I share that stuff is because, and most people have, I don't need to say this to the average person, but I put this up. It's sometimes when you write it down, that's the one thing about these devices, you got all your photos on it. I talk because I have my mother's 87 years old. She's still sharp as a whistle, and basically she's not in a nursing home. She's in like a facility. She has her own apartment, but they call it's not even managed care because she basically is responsible. She has her own, kitchen, bathroom, and all that stuff. But the complex she's in has like a dining hall, type of setup. And, so it's, I don't know, semi-managed, I guess, but she's still at it. And, I talked to her about these kinds of things. But what I'm saying is that if you take we were talking about photo, she was saying she has all these photos. This was a couple of weeks ago. I was talking to her. People had collected photos, and you could still go to Walmart and stick in your thumb drive and get photos made. And people do that, and they frame them, give them out as gifts, or put them on their walls. Photos they've taken with their smartphones or what have you. But for the most part, the average person has accumulated like thousands and thousands of photos because, you're just always taking a photo. I tried deleting mine. I have an Instagram account and I use that for my garden. I take photos and it's not like, hey, look at my garden to people necessarily. It's the idea of I use it as a, kind of a log of when I planted the year before or the progression of how, of when I put the seed in and that sort of thing, or when the last frost was last year as opposed to the previous year, things of that nature. And then I delete the photos from my phone, and I don't save that stuff in the cloud, But most people don't. Most people have like 10,000 photos, right? And it's like, scrolling through, hey, look at this, whatever, but you're not going to go through 10,000 photos, right? And I know they try to groups them into classifications and all that kind of stuff. They're constantly, because they know their own weakness, But, the video phone's been around since the 60s. We'll get back to that. And what I'm trying to say is that, you know, you you need that sometimes you want a hard copy of something, right? Just because you can touch it, feel it, you know? And when you're dealing with ideas, and that's the point, and I was trying to make from these lists in the book, it's like, yeah, you can make a list on your smartphone to go grocery shopping with. I mean, that, you know, that goes without saying. That's fine. But when you're trying to figure out, make decisions in life, like if you like a budget, say, for example. Now I use programs, I keep a monthly budget. And I'm an Apple person, so I use a program called Numbers, I think it is. I think it's Numbers that I use. Yeah, because it automatically calculates the side. The I forget the equivalent in Windows is. It's like Excel or yeah, it is Excel. But Apple has the templates. I'm sure by now Excel has templates too. But you just use the basic, line item list. And so I could put mortgage, electric bill, gas, internet, cat food, right? And I just put those amounts down and it automatically tallies. And I can see at the bottom, it's kind of like when you do that, we do your taxes online. You're looking at that thing at the top where you see what your refund is, so you make adjustments to make sure you get the maximum refund. Anyone who's done that knows what I'm talking about. If you don't, it's interesting. But they're supposedly, by the way, going to be, for a while it's been pretty lax with taxes, the IRS. But apparently under this new regime, they're going to be increasing the scrutinizing taxes. So a word to the wise. But what I'm saying is, so I knew that I had to lower my monthly expenses. I wanted to simplify my life because I had seen what's happening now coming. It was pretty obvious to most of us in the field of writers and people who were dealing with small businesses and who were just like looking at stuff, looking at paying attention is what I'm saying. Most people are oblivious to what's going on. They're just watching TV, watching shows that they're not like paying attention to those little signals, And when I had TV, I don't have TV anymore. Occasionally I would put on Bloomberg, for like an hour or two and hear what those people were talking about. Because remember, if you want to really, really want to know what's going on in the country, watch the financial stations for an hour or so. Because that's it. Remember, we live in a corporatocracy. Forget about the news readers. The news readers are just the type of people that, it's just content to, like I said, to keep you tuned in through the commercial breaks where they're selling used cars, pharmaceuticals, or the lawyers who are telling you the pharmaceutical that you took was, is the reason why you're going to have your kidney removed or something. It's a game. That's politics is a game. It's pop culture, cult of personality, both the news reader as well as the politicians. They're meaningless. It's a corporatocracy. So Bloomberg, when people say, when I've said this maybe about, I don't know, maybe a week or two, a couple weeks ago in a show, but when last fall, when it started to emerge of this World Economic Forum and the Great Reset, the legacy news media, as some people call it, but the alphabet: ABC, NBC, CBS, PBS, Fox, NBC, CNN, MSNBC, Newsmax, whatever it is, every friggin' station that there is, the mainstream media, as they call it, were coming out and saying, "Oh, that's the Great Reset is a conspiracy theory," right? Until fortunately, it started to surface that the World Economic Forum actually had a website. And if you went to their official website, here's this Klaus guy who looks like a dictator from the early part of the 20th century, and right on the right side of their website, it in big bold letters was the Great Reset. And then there was a description of how they wanted to take advantage of all this stuff that happened with this plague and, blah, blah, blah. And that was Davos. And then Davos came and all this stuff. I mean, it's real, and they couldn't hide it anymore. And so when they can't hide anything anymore, and they've denied it and called it a conspiracy theory, what they do is they just like get silent. They don't retract it. It's like, I think recently the Washington Post just they had a major retraction of something, but it was like of something that they from months and months and months ago. So it's like so out of context, or it doesn't mean anything, a retraction of something major, like, a major lie, that was just used for some political gain or just, or clickbait or something like that. That should be front page news, because you're messing with the minds of millions and millions of people and affecting their futures. But to make a long story longer, what I'm saying is that in order for me to figure out a way to get there are two things, okay, that I advise people to do. And I don't normally give advice. I always say, you do follow your bliss. So, do whatever, do your own research or whatever. But, and these two things, I stand by them. They're in my books. And that is, simplify your life in a sense. Don't take away the quality of your life. All right. Like I say, it's a matter of survive, but thrive. So, you should be living. Don't live worse. The idea of simplifying your life or reducing your cost of living. I'm not trying to tell you that you should be suffering or you should be like living like some minimalist, or these homesteaders, right? And I've talked about that before too. These people putting in composting toilets, moving to the country and using an outhouse. It's like, come on, it's the year 2021. I'm not using no outhouse. I got 2 toilets. I have a small house, an inexpensive house. I paid 15 grand for something like that. And I've got 1.5 baths in it. All right. I may have a leaky roof that I'm working on fixing, patching it myself. But I'll tell you, I got 2 bathrooms. And it's like, no, I'm not going back in time, So no, my advice that I'm saying here is live well, survive and thrive. And in order to do that, first thing you have to do is you have to have that list. And a lot of people just don't do it. Now you can use your computer, use a program like Excel or Numbers if you have the Mac thing. That's what I use. And type down the line items, every possible thing that you spend money on. And that includes, and don't hold back. That includes frivolous things, So, I mean, you list Netflix. If you buy, a 6-pack or something, whatever you do, just everything down. You could just lump some things into personal expenses. Medical expenses could include if you buy a bottle of aspirin every, whatever, or, hand cream. This time of year in my climate, my hands get like, if I don't put lotion on my knuckles, especially working outside and stuff like that, because I'm washing my hands all the time, especially if you're doing gardening. I mean, they literally crack, so I'll just put that under like, medical expenses, personal expense, health and medical expenses. But list every stinking item. And of course, these programs now will tally that all up by themselves. And you should, play around there and look at, with what your income is. Now, if somebody's on a fixed income or you have a job and you know what your salary is, you have to make sure that that number below, matches. And if you see that your number's going over all the time, and and you've got credit card 1, credit card 2, credit card 3. I got no credit cards. That was one of the main things. Get out of debt the best you can. Then you have to then that's the step 1 is to make sure you're living within your means and you're not getting caught in this credit thing where your interest is tacking on upon interest. Print that thing out. After, because remember, on the computer now, it just exists in the cloud. It's on your machine. All right. You could always go back and readjust it and then print it out again. How much does it cost to print out a sheet? You buy a thing of, if you have a laser printer, forget those inkjets, those laser printer things, you get thousands of of sheets of copies out of a printer. I've been using one of mine. I've got one of these I have 2 printers. I have a color printer left over from when I was in doing the magazine. And, and amazingly, the ink used to be real expensive. You used to have to buy 4. It's a laser printer though. It's not ink. It's not the inkjet, things. It's laser. So it's dry and it used to cost about $300 to replace, the cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. But now that that machine's older and outdated, I was able to buy an entire for $39.95 again, 95. Wish they'd get rid of that. I was able to buy all 4. So I'm printing color printer, but I have an old black and white one that I've had for a very long time. And I think I've had it since I've gotten here. And I don't think I replaced the toner in there. It's just a black one. But that's one I could also work. It works as a copy machine, and through my computer, it works as a scanner. So I could put something on there, scan it, and it scans it into my computer. I've been using that thing for 5 or 6 years since I moved in this house. That's about how long I've been here, 5. I think this coming fall will be my 6th year. So I've basically been here 5.5 years. So it costs pennies. And even if you don't have a printer, you just put it on a thumb drive and go to a copy shop, print it out for a dime, nickel, dime, and use it as a worksheet. Now, that's number 1. That's how you get control of your budget. And you look around, and most people just don't do this. They have they pay their bills. They kind of work through their checkbook. They have a general idea, but it's sit at the kitchen table, and balance things out and all this kind of stuff. And whatever's left, oh, we got some money. Let's order a delivery pizza, right? That's no way to live your life. Not in these times right now. Now, the second thing you want to do that is in tandem with that is you want that list of things to do. Your goals or things that are important to you. What I always say is you could split that in half into things that you like, things that you don't like. And that generally meaning, it could be things you don't like about, your life right now, or things you don't like in general, and things you like maybe about your life right now, or things that you don't like in general. And that's something, forget about you could type it on your computer if you want to, but take a piece of paper and just draw a line down the middle of a regular sheet of paper. Likes, dislikes. All right. And because you got to visualize, that's how the human brain works. They don't teach this to people, but you could go to courses, and I don't, people get, you could buy 10 of these self-help books and how to succeed and all this kind of stuff. And I'm going to give you the crash course in something that you could spend thousands of dollars on and go to all these things and hear all these so-called speakers and blah, I'm going to give it to you in 5 minutes. It's all about your likes and dislikes, and then living within, and then that leads into your budget and your life and what lifestyle you choose, how the changes you make in your life. And until you see it and visualize it. So I hate my, some people might put, I hate my job, right? Or I hate commute. It takes a half hour to get to your job maybe, or something. I hate commuting a half hour through traffic. I don't like my boss, right? I don't like my coworkers or whatever. I don't like what I have to do, right? I like sitting I like the sun, right? I like watching movies on Hallmark. I'm just being, weird about it, but literally everything you like, all right, in detail, like just all the little things. I like Godiva chocolates, I like the yellow peep chicks this time of year, and I don't like this, I don't like that, I don't like that for this, and make that lists and look at it, and you see it right before your eyes. Now your brain, now your subconscious is getting into the thing, because before it's not, these things just exist. It's like photos, having 10,000 photos in the cloud. You kind of know you have a photo of your Aunt Margaret at, some event, but, you got to go search and grab it, and you don't have Uncle Joe or the picture of your dog, everything's in the cloud and it's in some place and it's all discombobulated and blah, blah, blah. And you have to pull it and yank it down, right? Or print it out or look at it one at a time or something like that. So the way the subconscious, and you are a creature of your subconscious, that the biggest enemy to people is the subconscious mind, right? Because that's the thing that's like really driving you. Consciously, you're just aware of things, but it's that subconscious that kind of works against you in many ways, So find out all these things about yourself, put them on a sheet of paper and look at it. And maybe the first day you just do that. And maybe the second day or a week later, you just add to it. Maybe it's just a list you kind of just leave on an end table next to your sofa in your living room, or, beside your bed, on a nightstand. And over a period of time, like I say, there's no rush. You cannot make life changes. Nothing can be is rushed, and you shouldn't be in a hurry. I mean, there are certain things that are urgent, that you have to act quickly on, but there are other things that sometimes it's best to take your time and to think them through. And so once you arrive where you think you've got your list of likes and dislikes pretty well full down to the, to the minute detail, then start considering looking at it and saying, what can I change what can I do to get rid of these things that I dislike and get more of the things that I like? You see? And is my current job, is my current relationship, is my current living situation, is the town that I live in, the city I live in, whatever, all of the factors, what are those leading to my dislikes? Things that are making me less than happy. I would be happier if I had, and it's not like I wish I had more chocolate, or I wish I had, a bigger car. I want a Mercedes Benz. If that's your thing, I guess it's okay. In my world, that's not what I'm really talking about, though. I'm talking about pure happiness, and fulfillment in your life, living well. And it's not a matter of like, I want a pearl necklace. Unless it's that important to you, and you have everything else. It's like, well, then, okay. And you can afford it, then get a pearl necklace. Like I would say, yeah, makes you happy, get a pearl necklace. If you can afford it. Well, anyway, I don't have to go further with that, because what you will find is you will discover on your own with that list, line down the middle, likes and dislikes, you will see what's wrong, where you are in your life, and you will realize whether you are on the right path or not, and whether you need change. And if you find that your dislikes, that the things that in your life that you dislike far outweigh the things you like, or things you want to do, the things you want, who you want to be, how you want to live. If the negatives far outweigh the positives, then you need change. And if the positives, are fine, and you still have some things that are minor dislikes and things like that, well, then it's a matter of then looking at that, the things, the dislikes, or the things that don't make you happy or whatever, and seeing if you can somehow minimalize them, or in some way, shape, or form. Because if for the most part you find that, well, you're basically pretty much happy. All right. And that is, your subconscious will give you that answer. But until you look at that, make that list, because you don't know. You really don't know right now. You might think but you don't know. I'm telling you that. You don't know. You could probably rattle off maybe a half dozen or a dozen things off the top of your head. But there's another dozen or 2 dozen or 3 dozen things that you really gonna have to think about. And it might take you several days or over the course of a week or two to really, to have that. And when you visualize it on that paper, then you make a decision. Then, depending on that, you go back to that financial thing, the costs, your costs of living. And you say, what am I spending? How am I living here? Is that affecting, in other words, what on this list of likes and dislikes, my ideal, the ideal, so to speak, which should come out of there. How do I make that match with my cost of living? It's like, for someone who wants to retire, or wants to simplify their life, or move to a different town, or scale down their life. Again, survive but thrive. I'm not talking about minimalistic living, unless you're a minimalist. If you're a minimalist, that's fine too. But that's something you'll discover on your list. I don't like the clutter. I prefer I want a cleaner. I want a more simplistic. Whatever. And that's what I did. So, and I've helped other people. I've told this to many people over the years. And everyone, not a single person, everyone came back and thanked me for it and said it worked. And so when I decided to move here, I looked, I already knew my likes and dislikes. It was actually became blatantly obvious to me. I knew I was unhappy where I was, even though I was bringing in more money. All right. I had, like I said, I was publishing a magazine. I was designing things for people. I was kind of the toast of the town, really. I mean, it wasn't like a big, but I mean, literally, I could go in any restaurant, bar, they'd like give me, the royal treatment, and here, free steak dinner. This drink's on me, that kind of thing. My opinion mattered to people. That kind of thing. I had, I had enough money that if I wanted to waste, I could go. It's like, I remarked to people about this, two different things. I went to another story that leads right into this. I think I might have mentioned a friend of mine came down to my town to get the old shot in the arm, I'm talking about, because that was the nearest place to where she could get scheduled for it. And she was like 45 minutes away. And of course, it was an appointment she had at a specific time. And it was like near a shopping center area where there was a Walmart. And I knew that she'd be gone. It'd take her an hour between getting ready, getting set up there. And, by the time they process her through, then they sit you down, make sure you're okay for 15 or 20 minutes before they let you go and all that stuff. I said, look, drop me off at Walmart. I haven't shopped in Walmart, in years, like really shopped. So I got in the cart and I knew I had all the time in the world. And I just went through Walmart and I went down aisle by aisle because, there's things, especially when you have, I have an older house, I'm into the garden, I'm into this computer, broadcasting, all this kind of stuff. And so I just went down and got found the things I needed. And I found the things that were like the least expensive, like even things like the can of Lysol. They had, at the end of an aisle, they finally have, for the longest time, you couldn't even get like Lysol spray, right? I have a cat, so it's like I have, cats jumping on things. You can't wash the tops of all your furniture and stuff. So, for cleanliness purpose, you need Lysol when you have pets and stuff like that. And you're coming in and out of a garden dealing with that. You need to have that stuff more so than even the average person who hoarded that stuff, in the last year and the last couple of months. But at the end of the aisle, just as an example, they had from floor to the top of the shelf, Lysol, brand Lysol. And I don't know, it was like $5.99 or something for a can. It wasn't the biggest can in the world either. But I also knew that they had a Walmart version, crisp linen, the same thing kind of thing, for like $2.87. And that was all. And so I went to the row of cleaners and I found they only had like 2 rows there, but they had some. So I bought one of those as an example. So I went through the store and I just bought all of these things. And, my bill came out. It was a pretty high bill, relatively speaking. But I mean, I had a cart full of stuff. But the items I was buying were $1, $2, $3. I mean, I was really. Now, flashback to me 6 or 7 years ago. All right. This is how it ties into what I'm trying to tell you. I would just go into a super center, store like that. And it would be like, just go down the aisle. Okay. Right. Lysol, grab that, this kind of food thing, grab that. And I know people who are like that. I watch them when I go to my small supermarket that I walk to. They just come down the aisle and they're just throwing this stuff in. It's all brand name this or whatever, but I guess whatever, and they fill their cart and they get to it, and there's hardly anything in their cart and their bill's $88, close to $100. I can remember going to these super centers and spending like close to $200, but I didn't care because I had, the income. And so I was wasting it, but the way I am now, I could have bought the same amount of items and had the same stuff, more or less, different brand here or there, for a half or maybe even a third of the price. And so that's so I knew that, so one of the ideas was that, okay, I have to become a little more cost conscious, and I can that was something that was clear in my head. I could do that. the other thing was I was paying too much in rent. And what was the benefit of me paying over 800 some dollars just in rent in an apartment? I said, that's a lot of money, and I don't own this place. I don't know the landlord. I mean, actually, I knew who the landlord was, but I mean, I don't know if that guy's going to be, sell this place or, go bankrupt, which he eventually did. I was right on that one. So, security wise, I go, no, it's time. I'm getting older. I want a house. Now I want my own place. I want to be able to play music. You can't see it now because we're on this light thing. Let's just check our 95%. We're at on this thing. We started at like 97 or something like that. So I just wanted to know, and we're using 7 watts, right? It's ridiculous. So I said, I'm going to start looking online through one of these sites. I use Zillow, but like I said, I'm not recommending that. Now there's got to be a ton of them, various real estate sites where you could like go online, put in a zip code, or not even a zip code, maybe just a region, and you put in a price of a house, a budget, and it'll take you to places. You could put low to high, and then you go to that page and you see the house, and then and most of them now, you can just, click an arrow and you could go in and see interior shots. Here's the living room. Here's the dining room. Here's the backyard. Here's the restroom, blah, blah, blah. And then under it, usually, push into the mic, it'll tell you, if you haven't done this, I'm just giving you this, but it'll tell you, it'll give you an idea of the cost in that area. So here's what a mortgage would be, blah, blah, blah. And many of them are even tied into these online mortgage places where you could like instantly apply online. I didn't do that. I had a bank account. So I just went through my bank. Figured they already knew me. I had the bank account since I was, for 20 years, since my job. What's before I was in, independent, doing my own thing when I still had a paycheck coming in. So I banked with them for 20 years. So I figured I'll stick with them. Though it was a process. It took about a month to get the mortgage. They want a lot of paperwork. It's I'm not going to pretend it's easy, But anyway, I narrowed it down to 3 houses. All right. And I think I said this before. This wasn't my first choice. My first choice was like a brick house with a kind of a pretty neat, sunroom in the front of it. And then there was another house I wanted, but just when I was ready to close on that house, the house had been empty for about a year or so. This house had been empty. The reason I got this cheap was this house hadn't been moving either for about a year or so. There's a lot of houses on the market like that. That's how you get your deals. Well, anyway, somebody, believe it or not, a week before I was ready to move into this or start the process of closing on that house, somebody had gone in and broke in the basement and like stole the copper pipes. You know what I'm talking about? That's what people do to abandon, houses that are empty. Like the realtor called me and he said, I have good news and bad news for you. The good news is I think I can get you that house for a lot less than we talked about originally. I said, okay, well, what's the bad news? Somebody broke in last week and pulled the copper pipe, so you got to replumb the place. And I like that. That was a nice house. But, in retrospect, it was bigger than this place. And even this place, I call it a small house. It's still, it's me and my cat. And it's a 2-bedroom house, 2 floors with the 3rd floor, like an attic is almost like a 3rd floor. It's a lot of house for one guy, But anyway, so I ended up with this one. And I didn't even know. I think this originally was listing for like 19,000 or 18,000. And just the realtor, for some reason, got it down to 15 or 16,000. So as I say on almost every episode, my mortgage, taxes, and insurance are less than $200 a month. So I went from paying over $800 a month just in rent at my previous place in this next town up, about 45 minutes from here, to paying $200 a month. So I saved $600. All right. And I owned and ended up with a yard, and with the yard that is south facing. We'll get into that, in future shows when I show you the garden. If you have a garden, you always want a south facing, or you're growing anything, even if it's just a window, growing stuff indoors or on a porch or a patio. You want south facing because sun rises in the east, sets in the west. And if you're, I'm pointing at you, you're the south. That means you're going to get full sun from sunrise to sunset. Anyway, and that just happened. And at the end of that yard, it was a detached garage, which I end up using as kind of like a workshop, just a hangout thing. So-called man cave, if you want to call it that. And then I had, at the time, I had a Verizon account with my cell phone, all right, an Apple iPhone. And, they the prices then were creeping up. Now I know you can get these all kinds of deals, unlimited this, unlimited that, if you sign for this, that, the other, $49.95. But of course they add taxes and all that stuff onto it. But I kept my cell phone until I moved in because that was my phone. And then I remember seeing these commercials about Magic Jack. I'm going to get back to, remember, I always try to bring you back into thing. I don't want to leave you. I don't leave you hanging. I'll get you today or I'll get you tomorrow. I'll eventually, because I watch these things and I realize sometimes, I never finished that thought. And then I'll try to bring it up the next day. So I said, Magic Jack, I'm paying $90 a month to have this Verizon cell phone. All right. That's, $1,200 a year almost, over $1,000 a year. And they have a Magic Jack for $40 a year. And that comes with a free app that allows you to put that app on your smartphone. And that app functions as a, let me just show you. I don't know if you can see it. There's a little, you could see there's an M here. You see that M down the bottom? So if I press on that M, let's see if we get the right angle. It's a keyboard. That's Magic Jack. This phone rings. When I was in Walmart, the story I told you about going to Walmart, waiting for my friend to get, when she was getting her shot, I said, Walmart has Wi-Fi, right? She goes, oh yeah, they do. I said, okay, well, I'll take my phone with me. Just call me. She said, well, what number will I call you? Do you want to use, because she had like 2 cell phones or something, or had an old cell phone or something. I said, no. And so when I got in Walmart, I waited a little while till she got up to her spot. And I just automatically, the Wi-Fi detected Walmart's Wi-Fi. And I'm like, hey, I'm in Walmart. Just thought I'd check it out. Give me a call when you're done. I'm just having fun in the store, shopping around. Call me when you're done, get back. And I'll tell you what part of the store I'm in so we could find each other. That's a Magic Jack, $40 a year. So, say I was paying $1,140 a year for Verizon. Suddenly I saved $1,000 or $1,100. So I saved $600 by buying a house, in rent reduction. I've saved $1,000, over $1,000 a year by getting this Magic Jack, which works in my house as a phone, which I could carry out into my backyard, or I could use on Wi-Fi. And Wi-Fi is ubiquitous now. The grocery store down the street has Wi-Fi. I don't drive anymore. I got rid of my car. All right. Because that was another thing. I wasn't using my car. So why buy a new car? Why deal with maintenance? Why pay car insurance, gas, and all that stuff when all I was doing is using it to go, get a grocery store order or picking up something or maybe going to an appointment you had. I've always lived even in the small towns I lived in, and I lived in the bigger cities. In the bigger cities, you can grab a cab or, the subway or walk or whatever. I've always I like places where I can walk anyway. That's the type of guy I am. Maybe from the time I lived in New York, used to, when it was all yellow cabs, subways, and you just walked. And you walked miles in New York. I remember that. So anyway, I saved on the car. I saved on the rent. I saved $1,000 on the phone. Right. And now I've got rid of, I don't watch TV. I had direct TV. And they were doing the same thing. They just kept creeping up the price. And I said, the heck with that. And I have Amazon Prime because I do order stuff online, especially not having a car. And that's like 100 some bucks. It's like $129 a year or something like that. I don't know what it is. Comes out to be, basically like $100 a month or something like that, or $10 a month, right? Which is nothing. And so you get free shipping and you get Amazon Prime videos, right? And these other stations or apps that, come with that. And, every now and then I'll get Netflix, but now they don't have an annual contract. So you could just get Netflix for this month and then cancel it. So if it's going to be a good Netflix month, I'll get Netflix. So I got rid of TV and I'm a YouTuber. And so once you're a YouTuber, you get to know the YouTube universe. And there's a plethora of stuff on YouTube. And you could get YouTube Premium. A friend of mine has that. And you don't have commercials. And so you don't even have to put up with that nonsense. So, that's like, because there's nothing worse than commercials. I just, it's not just the commercial breaks. It's actually the commercials themselves that they aggravate me, and I'm an ad man. I'm a guy who spent better part of my life involved in making a living in that kind of, in advertising. But maybe that's it, but I just can't stand it. So, and there's a number of things like that. So then I started to grow my own food, do this garden thing. And I found that, and it wasn't intentional. I was just messing around, but I planted some lettuce seeds. Of course, everybody plants tomatoes, but I just branched out. I put some peppers and, different things, and kale, herbs, different things. And suddenly I found that first year I did that, the only thing I was buying at the grocery store was like salad dressing and like rolls or wraps, or something to make sandwiches and stuff, or maybe some mayo or something like that. And so I was going 6 months, half the year, on food. So I was saving all that money. And so I looked now my list, that we started talking about now, on Numbers or Excel, and I kept finding different ways of consolidating my life, but at the same time improving it so that I was happy. And when I would make a capital expense, so to speak, I would buy something like a lawn chair, like a reclining lawn chair. Or I bought a little set of outdoor speakers, that I hooked up in my garage and area where the patio is. So in the summertime, I could lay down on this lounge chair, and I've been using this lounge chair for 5 years now. And those speakers, I think they only cost like $20, but they were indoor outdoor speakers. They're not that big. They're only about, I guess, this big. You know the kind of speakers, you've seen them. They're like metal speakers. You get them in white or black usually. And I hooked them up to an amp. I just happen to have this. I don't sell this stuff, but I just happen to have this here because you see this thing? It looks like the thing people put in their cars, and you could put this in your car. All right. All right. I bought this on Walmart for like $8. The first one I bought, though, the one I have in my garage, it was like $19.95, again with the 95. And so this hooked up to those two speakers. And of course, in the back of these things, you've got an input, whether you put in RCA or that little black circle, which is harder to see next to the RCA things. That's just a regular 8-inch jack thing. So, you could just plug in your smartphone to it, so play your iTunes or whatever you're using. And so I kick back on my lounge chair that I paid, I don't know, $39.95 again, always the 95, with my speakers centered, the sunny, remember, south facing, so the sunny spot. So after I fiddle around in my garden or fiddle around in my little man cave workshop thing, though I'm not really making anything, I'm just basically doing little minor fiddling, minor repair things and stuff, or painting something. And I'm laying back. It's a sunny day, eyes closed, nice music coming out of the speakers. I'm centered between them, stereo, so it's it's better than headphones even. Close my eyes, and I may as well be like one of these pictures that you're seeing in the background. I could be on the beach in Cancun. Like I said to people, take a vacation in your own backyard. And that's what I've found. And that's how I, it's a long way of dealing with that part of this, how I've simplified my life, but I've survived and I thrived. And now what I'm saying is that with these types of devices, if there's a storm or something like that, a power outage, a grid down situation, I have a solar panel. I have a real small solar panel, and I have a little bit bigger solar panel in the back that could probably charge this thing. But I'm still thinking I might, if you go to Great Solar Stuff, I'm still thinking I might get, like, here's a picture of the thing I have, but they have solar panels. The same company makes solar panels, right? But, that's it. So I can survive and thrive. And so could you. Now, what does this have to do with de-evolution? Well, I think, apart from the idea that people are blind to, the corporatocracy, and that politics is no longer is just a game. It's content for newsreaders who are selling used cars on TV. It's the idea that the materialism, the consumerism society, it hasn't really taken us, to the year 2021. Right? I mean, back here, sunrises, sunsets, this nature, it's not, in other words, we're in these cubicles, right? Whether people go to work and when they could, locked, half the people aren't working right now. But I mean, you're either cooped up in your apartment cubicle, some people have a gilded cage, but it's still a cage. It's like what I've said to my mother. She has a good sense of humor about stuff like that. Because it's really bad for the elderly. You know, not only are they high risk type of individuals because of all this, but they're locked up. And she said her and the other, like her lady friends there, when they get together, they talk about, how it's like a prison. They feel like they're in prison. So it's a cage. And you could live in a gilded cage, or you could live in, a dump, but it's still a cage. You can go to work and you can have one of those, work in some cubicle, work carols. There's different names for them. Or you could even have a small office somewhere, but you're still in some kind of cubicle. You're in and we don't look up at the stars. I have a song, a beat poetry song, where I mention that. We don't see the stars anymore. We don't watch the sunrises and sunsets. And a friend of mine takes pictures of sunrises every day. He's doing a book. And, these are the things. This is life. You're a living human being. And so we're de-evolving because we're losing our humanity. And that's why I talk about dehumanization ties into that. So it's de-evolving, dehumanizing, and, equals dystopia. Now, not everyone is experiencing, dystopia, so to speak, but, a lot of people are. And it's not getting any better. I feel, I don't feel like I'm experiencing dystopia. I do these things to, help people, talk to people, share my ideas and experiences. I wrote these books. I don't, like I said, I'm demonetized. If you go to Great Solar Stuff and buy this stuff, I appreciate it. But it's like I don't make this stuff. So it's like I get a commission or something. Or lucky if I make a buck, or something. You buy my books, I might make $2 or something. I don't know. My music's the same way. If you go to listen to it on Spotify or something like that, I might make 2 cents. So I'm not motivated, not like these people on YouTube, that it seems everybody anymore. Do you ever notice this on YouTube? I talked about this once before. I'm not going to waste a lot of time on this. I don't want to keep the show too long. But you ever notice lately, I'm very, very disappointed because there's been some people that I followed and I enjoyed, that's part of the YouTube experience. You follow these people on their adventure, type of thing. But, I noticed they all start making money, right? Because they're monetized, right? And all their shows, I tell you, out of I would say 8 out of 10 of the people that I had been following, I don't even click on them anymore because the title alone is, we bought a new skid steer. We bought a new this. We got a new this. And it's the idea is, okay, great. You're making $100,000 on, on YouTube now, or you made $1 million on YouTube now. Now you're what now you're just like, you were supposedly some DIY homesteader living this thing. And now all you're doing is saying, hey, look, we became, materialistic, crazy people, and we're buying stuff. And some of these people who started out as these just, doing what I'm trying to tell you, a better way to live. Now they've got 5 trucks and all kinds of this, and they're getting this and hooking up that. Yeah. Well, first of all, I'll never get monetized because you need I won't, that's not going to happen. And if for some reason tons of people bought my stuff, the best thing I would do is probably patch my roof, right? And maybe get a couple of solar panels. You're not going to, I got no room for that kind of stuff. I'm not buying a car. I'm not buying anything. What? And there's no way I'm ever going to get to that point. It's kind of disheartening and disappointing to see that. And those people are fools too. Because the idea is that we've talked, the recurring theme on this show is that grand solar minimum, the earth is cooling. We know that we're going to have may well have crop shortages. That's one of the reasons why I recommend everybody, just simplify your life, cut your costs down as best as possible to get through this. Because, come September, when these unemployed people are no longer getting those checks, they're not going to keep this stuff up indefinitely. It's just not going to happen. We're not going to be getting another $1,400 check. And my advice is to use that, like I say, for something that is going to give you happiness over the long term, or as long term as possible. And whether that's like me just spending a couple of, some meager amount of money and getting a lawn chair and some speakers so that I could, during the summer, have this peace and fulfillment and fun in the sun, so to speak, or whether it's like, these devices here that, if and when, the power goes out or whatever, you have, you still can live. These are the things that, people just aren't thinking about. And you have to think about it. And technology, like I said before, even this YouTube live technology, I had to put this is a television I used to have on the wall in this room. In fact, I still do it, and I'll probably continue to do it. When I talk about TV, I always look up because I used to have it on the wall behind me. This room goes back a little bit, not big. This isn't a big house. It's only like 18 feet wide. It runs long through the yard, but it's like the footprint of this house is only like the total land, I think, is 19, 20 feet. And that includes like a foot on each side of the building. But the technology should be that, and I've said this before and I'll say it again, because if the YouTube algorithm or, listeners, monitors are listening in, why don't you put some kind of little button on here that says picture in picture, right? And it simply, and if you click on that, it'll just pull up like when you do a file search on your computer, it'll pull up one of those file things, and I could select a picture of, of anything, that I'm talking about, and it'll put it on this half of the screen. So instead I had to rig up this thing, which if you watch some of my earlier shows, I was actually putting pictures on there. But then I decided I'm just going to, for the time being, I think I'm just going to show some nice scenes, just to remind us that this is the world we live in, and it's a beautiful world we live in. And they're trying to dehumanize us and, lock us down, but who gets the benefit of that beautiful beach there, that little alcove or whatever? The ruling elite, the people from the World Economic Forum Davos set. They're the people that pull up a yacht somewhere on that island or wherever that is, right? Not you and me, right? I originally, I originally wanted to retire at the shore. I figured I'd publish a dining entertainment magazine like I was doing before I came here. I figured because I could do it better than anybody else, because I've been doing it since I was a kid. And I figured, well, I'd retire early down at the shore, run something like that, and have a view of the ocean and go for walks on the beach and stuff like that. But the costs are just astronomical, because the ruling elite, just took all that property up. I mean, I used to go to the shore constantly, and it was very affordable. But now it's like, it's vacation, max out your credit card type of situation. And if you could find anything that's even half decent, the taxes. See, it's the taxes that they get you. Because remember, we're cattle on their tax farm. But I've always added to it, we're cattle on their tax / consumer farm. And once you're no longer a taxpayer or a consumer, then they put you out the pasture or warehouse you in, like the senior citizens, warehouse you in these nursing homes and long-term care facilities, so they could just scoop up all this money that's either have you sign over your house so they could take everything you've ever, all your wealth, your net worth over your life, and or pull that money out of the government from Medicare, Medicaid, whatever the heck it is, get there, because the corporatocracy is the government now. That's what this is all about. See, that's why a lot of people don't understand. Janet Yellen is the Treasury Secretary now. And this isn't really about politics. This is about the corporatocracy. Well, she was the chairman. She was the Fed chairman. And of course, the Federal Reserve is just a consortium of banks in the US. Has nothing to do with the federal government. So why would you have this private central banker in charge of the US Treasury? That's like kind of scary before. That's like the fox in the hen house type of idea. It's the same as like these people who work for the Security and Exchange Commission end up on Wall Street, or like some Wall Streeter ends up being the head of the Security and Exchange Commission, or somebody from the Food and Drug Administration ends up working for some big pharma, some pharmaceutical company, or vice versa. That's how this country really works. And that's why I'm telling you, it's a corporatocracy with these puppeteers up here pulling the strings of everybody. It's the corporatocracy that writes the laws, puts these things in the bills in Congress and donates to the campaigns of the finance of all the politicians, right? The elected officials, no matter how such great orators and whatever, however they present, like, this guy's right, and the cult of personality of these political figures. No, none of them, zero, absolutely zero. Okay. They're all controlled. This is a corporatocracy. This is the former United States of America. I've said it 1,000 times. We have irreconcilable differences. What exists now in the states are authoritarian governors who are basically ruling various states. Some states are better. Some states are pure hell to live in. All right. Other states are, borderline on being like paradise, So it's not pure dystopia. If you're living in the Pacific Northwest, some of those bigger cities, there's like crazy stuff going on up there. If you're caught up in like the New York, Chicago's and places like that, in a high crime district neighborhoods and stuff like that, you've been living dystopia for years now. They like to post the death counts or case counts of flus and stuff like that on TV, but they don't tally up how many murders there are every day, or how many suicides or all of that stuff. So we're de-evolving as a species. There's been studies about how functionally illiterate a huge portion of people are. Just the nature of how people took all this stuff and just didn't even just accepted everything, on face value. So, it's de-evolution. And their goal is dehumanization, depopulation, right? Leading to dystopia. And so you have to find, it's not like I said, you have to find a way to decouple yourself, detach yourself limit your exposure as much as you can to the corporatocracy, to these uh, old world order people, the people that want to bring back the feudal system, the king system, World Economic Forum, the Great Reset. That's what that's really all about. You want to limit your exposure to them. And like I say, you don't want to just survive, but you want to thrive. So spend your $1,400 well. If you're unemployed and you're still getting almost full salary because of that extra $400 on top of your unemployment extension, think about it, because you don't have the same expenses as you may have had because you're under lockdown. Unless you're just sitting around and you're just ordering, Domino's pizza every day, and you've subscribed to every service from Netflix to Hulu to whatever, and you're ordering like crazy on Amazon, just buying, trinkets and gadgets and stuff. Think about it. Use your time and money wisely, and you'll survive and thrive. Because there's 350 million of us, is my calculation. I think most people are saying 320, 330. I think there's about 350 million people in the States now, the disunited former United States. And it's impossible for them to, mess with everybody. And the idea is, don't mess with them. You see, it's like when I used to, when I lived in New York, I lived in the Upper West Side because I worked at Columbia University. And I used to have a friend who lived down in, they called the Village, and we used to go down like Bleecker Street and some of the neighborhoods, ethnic neighborhoods down there. And we would, on the weekends, Friday night or Saturday night, we would go bar hopping, go to the Blue Note jazz clubs, or just go to these funky bars and different places like that. And, and then I would, and so I would be out till 2 or who knows, or 3. But, from the Upper West Side to, down to the Village, Bleecker Street, that's, that's a long, long, long way. Okay. It's miles. And so I would ride the subway back. And the advice that people gave me, when I first went to New York, and I lived in New York a couple of different times. I had three different jobs in New York City. So I know New York, and I lived in 3 different parts. One time I actually lived one job. I lived in a penthouse apartment. Another time I lived in Brooklyn, the Williamsburg part of Brooklyn. And another time I lived in just like Midtown in an apartment. But so I pretty much knew the city, and I had friends in I would go to people's houses, and I don't know. It was my stomping ground for a little while, When you live and work in a place over a number of years, you get to know it. It's like DC. I was there long enough because I worked there and lived there. So it becomes your stomping ground. You get to know the out of the way places, the little pubs, the restaurants, this, that, the other. But what someone told me was, and this applies to this, is they said, what you want to do is you want to become, I'm just a notification. I'm just hiding a notification. You want to become invisible when you're on that subway. So it'd be 3 a.m. and, I'd hop the subway, take the subway back up, from downtown up to the Upper West Side where I lived. And so I had a leather jacket and sneakers, right? You got to have sneakers in those days. I mean, this is 30 years ago. And so, and I used to and you have to become like completely invisible, give off zero vibe. And I used to like kick back in the subway chair. I'd be the only one in the car, but the gangs, these crews, they would come walking through the cars, All right. And they were just looking for people that they could, rob, beat up and rob. Let's take it that suckers, that they could, take your money, or whatever. Prove to the other guys in the gang that they were tough, whatever. And so the thing is, you had to have that look that you were a native New Yorker. So, B, the leather jacket, the sneakers, right, was pretty much okay. This guy can run. This guy's got leather on. He may well have a knife or something or a piece underneath that. But thirdly, you wanted to be invisible. So I would just lean back, like have my eyes like almost closed, but just, I wasn't like completely, totally. I was aware that these guys are coming through and you could hear them like mouthing off and stuff like that. And I'm ready because I was no, wimp. I wasn't going to go down, easy. Somebody tried, whatever. But it worked. And and there were a number of times when some really rough, crews, came through. I'd be the only guy in that car, and they came from one car and passed right through and were a little more vocal as they were getting closer to me and stuff, and I just gave off no vibe at all. All right. And they passed, and I never had a problem, call it luck or call it what I'm telling you and what other New Yorkers had advised me to do. All right. Whichever the case is, I made it. And with the corporatocracy, it's kind of the same thing in a different way. It's just, all these people out there protesting, right? Or typing on Twitter and making comments on YouTube videos and all this stuff, right? Caught up in this political game when politics doesn't even matter. Like, why can't you people get it through your head? All right. Politicians don't exist anymore. They're nothing. It's a political media circus. It's content for used car salesmen on television and in newspapers. Like I showed you, in case you didn't see this. The biggest ads in the newspaper, what are they? The full page ads. They're selling cars. That's what the newspaper is. They're car salesmen. Turn on a TV, a local TV station right now, the morning show, and you're going to see an ad from a car dealership. And after that, you might see an ad for a drug. And then after that, you'll see an ad from a lawyer telling you that drug, a previous drug advertised, you can sue them for it. Get it through your head. These bills that are 1,200 pages long that they put out from Congress, slid in there are all the corporatocracy little things. The corporatocracy are the puppeteers. The politicians are down here. They're nobody. They're marionettes. All right. So it's like, you have to really. I think we lost our thing here, but I'm just about done this. I think we don't have that much to go. So, but I'm serious about that. I mean, sorry to interrupt the intensity of that, but it should have been interrupted, the intensity of it, because I don't like to be, get overly negative and crazy.
Good morning.
Have a good morning. But that's the thing. And so forget about the used car salesman. Forget about the media. The best thing I ever did was like canceling my television service, right? Not only did I save money, but I saved aggravation and agitation, right? I don't even like, even on the YouTube recommended list, I avoid it. I know things are going on because you could see, the headlines, or the title cards, where someone, they basically within a sentence or two, okay, you know, there was a thing, Biden falls 3 times, right? Okay, I don't need to watch that video, and I'm not going to give the person who posted that the free view, right? Okay, the dude fell trying to get on a plane or something. I don't care. So what? What does that have to do with my life? What does that have to do with me, experiencing the beauty of nature, So spend your money wisely. Take care of your health. Grow food if you can. Make those lists. Your monthly budget. And I put things to do, things to get. But I mean, that's a whole different story. The idea of knowing, I'm always making lists. So be organized. But the other one was the likes and dislikes, which wasn't really in that book. That was free self-help, free morning self-help for you. So checking this thing, it's taking 8 watts, only 93%. I've had that on before, at least a half hour before I started this show. So, and we'll probably go for another 10 minutes. So it's like about 2 hours, 2.5 hours. And this thing's like lost maybe 4 or 5% of its energy. And that's hours. So what I'm trying to tell you is that this is the kind of stuff you want to do. You want to survive and thrive, and cut your expenses down. Make a decision now while you have a chance. Things are going to get worse, after September is my feeling, right? Because, when the money runs out, you're going to be looking at maybe 50 million people unemployed in this country. I was thinking about that. And you still have all these senior citizens. People are getting older, and the young people who went to college and have this extreme student debt. Okay, so they're starting out, instead of, hitting the ground running like the way I did. I couldn't wait. So I said that yesterday or the day before. I was the summer term president at Penn State University because I was the only guy, out of most of the people that wanted to stay for the summer term and take classes in the summer. Because I wanted to get out of college. I mean, yeah, I partied in college and I had fun, but I mean, enough is enough. I couldn't wait to get out into the real world and start doing things and going places. And the stuff I studied, in college was, and that's another thing smart things to do was like, when I had elective courses to take, the type of courses I took were, I just, instead of taking some lame course, I took something that would help me in my future. Like I minored in like architecture. I was a film major, but I took a television production course, which wasn't under the film, because film was film when I was in college. You learned to edit film by splicing and that kind of thing. It was a whole different scene. That was right before this, this digital concept came in, because resolution on video then wasn't as good as it wasn't nearly as good as it is now. I took scuba diving. I took odd courses, whenever I had a chance. I said, people would look at me and say, what are you doing that for? What are you doing that for? I said, because I came to college to learn. I want skills. It's like when I was in high school, I took mechanical drawing, which most of the people in that class were people who were like most of the what they were the trade school type people who were taking shop and stuff and different things like that. But I had the opportunity and I took that because I want, so I'm sure there were a lot of future electricians and future carpenters and people got into building trade, becoming contractors and things like that. They would take those kind of courses in high school. But I learned that so I learned how a house is and a little terminology for and how a door, the arc you put, which way a door opens and all that stuff. So I wanted to learn, but we have a generation of people who are looking at $50,000 or more in college loan debt, and they took they in some kind of coursework that's like some social justice or whatever. Who knows what it is? They have no trades. They can't. You call somebody. This is the third time they're digging up the sewers on my street. This is the third time in like, I don't know how many years people are saying they just they can't get it right because the people don't know what the hell they're doing. You don't have enough tradesmen and all the tradesmen are gone. Like I wanted to get some guy to go up on my roof with tar, right? And just patch it because it's not like my whole roof is falling off. Half the roof is like in perfect shape. The center part of the other side, it's one of these kind of roofs. It's real steep. That's why I can't get up there myself. I've been trying to repair it from the inside in the attic. I've been actually like caulking and doing painting, rubberized stuff and stuff, trying to keep it from, coming through where the breaks of the original slatted roof boards are. But that's like a temporary fix. But I can't find, the only thing I could find is, oh yeah, call this place. They'll put a metal roof on for $10,000 to $12,000. Well, it's like I only paid $15,000 for the house. I'm not going to put a $12,000 roof on it. Forget that. I don't have it, and I'm not going to go in debt for it. I mean, I'll just keep patching it the way I'll patch it. It's over 100-some-year-old house to begin with. But I can't find anybody. You used to go into those rags, like that thing I pulled out and showed. It's a card, they're just selling cars. And there'd be like handyman, have truck, will travel. You know what I mean? Odd jobs, roofing, different things like that. You'd see that all over in the classifieds. Forget about it. Those people are all retired now. No, they're too old to get up on a ladder. I just need some dude to go up there on a ladder with some tar, a can of that cold tar, and a couple of, tile, shingles, they call them, and like slap down some tile on the place or slap down some tar on the place where it's leaking and hammer down a couple of, shingles and then put some tar over top of that shingle. I could fix the thing myself in probably an hour or two. But the darn thing is like almost 4 stories up because the way my house is built, because the attic is almost like a third floor. This is like like I said, it's like an 18-foot wide footprint house, but it goes up, there's a second floor. That's where my bedrooms are. And then there's an attic that's apparently the original owner, whoever built the house, they half finished it off. So they must have used it many, many years ago as a bedroom, maybe a kid's room or something like that. Then above that, there's like this ridiculous peak, which actually saves me a lot because it's such a sharp angle that mostly everything just runs right off it. But I still have a leak. Well, now I got on that. But anyway, I'll fix it. I'll deal with it. But that's what you do, So anyway, I covered a lot of territory here. And I think, if people have a good head on their shoulders, I think that you get the idea. But don't, we're de-evolving. This technology it's not all it's cranked up to be. Like I said, I'm using computers My other computer that I had from 1999 or the early 2000s, with like less RAM, and it really is RAM then, not DRAM like they use now. And the software programs on it. When you start that computer just like starts up like that. And when I click on those programs to start those programs, they open right up, and all of these sound effects,
Brilliant.
I have that plugged into this, and I'm able to do all these things, using tech that's like 15, 20 years old. And people themselves are de-evolving. People, who's going to, and now the talk, and like I said, I'm going to end this in about 5 minutes, but just a brief review again, like this Green New Deal and this idea of getting rid of CO2 and stuff like that, things that green the planet and whatnot. It's like without heavy equipment, we're a carbon-based society. All right. And that's de-evolution too. Because without it, you're definitely going to have crop shortages. All right. Because the farming industry is totally dependent upon carbon-based fuels and even fertilizers. All of our emergency vehicles are carbon-based because they just require too much power to do the things they do. Fire trucks, ambulances, all the emergency vehicles. All our repair and maintenance vehicles, all the cranes and all that kind of stuff, and no one is talking about this but me. Literally, I am the only guy who's talking about this. And I watch guys who are like out there with facts and figures, and getting into the charts and all that stuff. And I don't hear anybody bringing up fire trucks, ambulances, cranes, that kind of stuff. Repair vehicles, farming, harvesting equipment, that kind of stuff. And that's just the reality of it. So I don't know what kind of game they're playing, but it's de-evolution, dehumanization, which is leading to depopulation and dystopia. And we'll be covering those themes in the coming days, weeks, and months. But we'll also, on an upbeat thing, I'll be taking you out in the garden as the weather starts changing, and showing you, ways how easy it is to just grow stuff, and just how much fun it is to just live life, right? And remember, we still live in a beautiful world, all right? And there are beautiful people. And one of the things I was thinking about this morning was that, with all this lockdown and social distancing and stuff, how many people just aren't embracing each other, kissing each other, embracing each other, making love, or, and what kind of, we're social people. That's like a big part. And I talked about that yesterday when they looked at those centenarians, people who lived over 100. The one thing they had in common is that they were really social, not social media. They were social together, and they had meaning in their life. So it's like, that's dehumanization and de-evolution. Our lifespans are going to be short. And that's why I say it's depopulation. So anyway, we made it with this thing, with this light, this thing powered, you can get one of these things on greatsolarstuff.com. My advice is this one only costs $200, but you may want to get the $500 one, which is more powerful. Hell, they have a $1,300 kit that gives you a couple of solar panels and like over 1,000 some watts. You could basically really survive and thrive with that one if you have a family. But, get a mug, show your support, buy one of my books, listen to my music, the newer stuff. Excuse me. Thanks for watching. And like I say,
Good morning.
Have a great day. I hope I wasn't too much of a downer. I don't think I was, but we covered a lot of territory. It's It's been about 2 hours. And the light's still on. And like I say, I was only using something like 9 watts at its peak. And that thing's a 200 watt thing. Easily could have been, running everything for hours. Take care. Have a great day. It's a great Saturday. The rest of the weekend, most people are experiencing decent weather. So cheers, peace, and good times.